Black and brown creatives, understand me. L.O.S.T Creatives Podcast is here. I am looking for you. L.O.S.T Creatives Podcast. You trying to get it out there? DM me. I will shout out your work. I will drop links to your work. This is free. You don't have to give me a penny. I just want your time and your story, good brother. I just want your time and your story, good sister. We have our platform now. Let's get out there. This is what's up. This is what you need to do. I want your work to be out there, and I'm waiting on you. Tell me a story. Welcome back, everybody, and all of y'all to the L.O.S.T Creatives Podcast. I am your host, Ijlal Abdullah Muhammad, and as always, we're about to get into some things. Once again, yet again, I have another very special guest. This good brother was referred to me by another creative that I had the wonderful pleasure of speaking with, Arande. As I've stated many times before, I love going on Instagram and social media and finding creatives on my own and reaching out to them, and I'm very thankful and fortunate when they decide to take the time out to actually be on the L.O.S.T Creative Podcast. But I really love, and I always appreciate, and I always prefer when creatives refer other creatives, because that's very much what the L.O.S.T Creatives Podcast is about, helping us help each other, and helping us give each other opportunities, as we all grow and try to develop with our creative talents and and the businesses and ventures that our creative talents lead us. And that's exactly how this good brother came by way of referral. So I'm definitely want to jump straight into it. His work is magnificent. I don't understand how he sees, but we're most certainly going to get into that. So let me go ahead and introduce the good brother. He's a self-taught artist who considers himself an urban cityscape painter, and his creative art style as neo-urban, contemporary, and rap perspective driven. He's had works featured in solo art shows, group art exhibitions, art festivals, and even a 2 Chainz music video. That's what's up. So, ladies and gentlemen, Black and brown creatives everywhere, please put your hands together for Atlanta, Georgia's own Sean Mulkey is in the building remotely. What is going on, good brother? How you doing today?
Everything is good, man. Kicking in the new year, with a positive mindset. So, just looking for some good things on the horizon.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. That's what I like to hear. And Happy New Year to you, good brother.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you much. So, now I know you're from Atlanta, Georgia. Are you currently in Atlanta now?
Right now I'm in Hiram, Georgia. That's like 84 minutes north of Atlanta.
Okay, what's the weather like in Hiram?
Cold, and and just the past couple of days of just snowing. So yeah, it was looking like upstate New York down here. So.
Now, is that usual for Hiram this time of year?
Not really. I mean, every year we'll get some like snow flurries, but like this year it was the first time that we've actually had a like an actual snow. I don't want to say like a storm, but it was actually like 3 to 4 inches of snow. So it was pretty.
It's interesting. This winter, somebody I know, I forgot where it was in Texas, was telling me they were dealing with snow. I'm like, word. So we've had some. I'm in New York, man. I mean, granted, we get snow out here and everything, but I'm not upstate. I'm in Long Island. But we've had some unusual, longer than usual heavy winds. Heavy winds, and with all this going on in California right now, my mother-in-law has stated that the winds out there have been like she's never seen it. She was born and raised in LA, so this weather pattern all across the nation has been something, man. Yeah, but anyway, I obviously I want to jump straight in to, hearing everything that brought about this magnificent creative talent that you have, seeing your work. I'm so glad Aronde, told me about you, man. And I know when I first saw your work, I was taken aback. It was just truly amazing. And, one of the things that I have really grown to love on on the L.O.S.T Creative Podcast is the perspectives that, that all the creatives have presented, and, now their perspectives were very much philosophical, but yours it actually seems much more physical, than philosophical in your art. But then again, I want to hear your creative journey, because I'm pretty sure, that physical perspective definitely is nurtured, you know what I'm saying, by a philosophical one. So without further ado, man, let's just go ahead and let's just jump straight in, to your creative journey. You gave me obviously your three titles, as we do here on the L.O.S.T Creative Podcast, and then starting from chapter 1, which you titled My Genius, which I love that title, by the way. So go ahead, good brother Sean. Let's do it. Let me hear it.
Okay. I think I titled My Genesis on the beginning.
Wow,
But,
you did.
it's all good.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, you good. But yeah, I started. Well, first I was introduced to art in general when I was 5 years old. In the form of drawing. It was just like a simple drawing that I witnessed, and from there it kind of changed the course of my life. And in the beginning, my childhood days, I wasn't like fully immersed into the arts. I wasn't introduced to like painting or anything. It was just kind of like me tinkering with like different stuff. Most people, they play outside. Well, most kids, they would play outside and, go skateboarding and whatnot. I mostly just kind of stayed in the house and just tinkered with a lot of stuff. I'll take apart my TV and keyboard, or I'll make like different toys out of cardboard and construction paper. I was just very crafty and just very creative.
Okay.
And I think that, I believe that it stemmed from just me just needing a friend, because I didn't really have a whole lot of friends, when I was younger. So in a way, creativity just became that security blanket, that friend,
like a companion for you.
Yeah, definitely a companion. And it became that sense of therapy for me. So just throughout the course of time, just going through my different phases as a child and as a teenager, just dealing with puberty and, especially growing up in school, I was picked on a lot, I was teased and everything. So after I get home, my way of, cleaning my wounds is just drawing, creating, doing comic books. It's kind of like, like I said, it was that security blanket. It became a way to kind of soothe me, yeah. So, but then, like after high school, that's when I started to really get into more of the painting aspect. But prior to that, during high school or whatnot, I was, in the art classes or whatnot, but I didn't feel like I was nurtured, like my gift was nurtured like it was supposed to. The teachers there, they saw the potential, they saw the gift, but to be honest with you, they was kind of trifling. I ain't gonna lie to you. And they just kind of let me do what I wanted, kind of, sat me in the corner. They were like, well, you already got it, so you can just pretty much do whatever you want to do, create whatever you want to create. And at the time, that's not what I needed. If you see the potential in what I can do, then try to nurture it, try to introduce
cultivate it.
Cultivate it, introduce me to some people, or whatnot. But I mean, it is what it is. I mean, after high school, I just ended up, teaching myself and doing some research for myself and, getting books and just kind of experimenting, getting hands on. Um, I did form some friendships during that time. So I was able to, some other artists, I was able to just kind of um, not really sit underneath them, but,
Hmm.
just whatever knowledge that they had, just to kind of pass it on to me. And I just kind of,
Yeah.
utilize that to develop my um, style. And I went through my creative phases, just like any other artist, at least the artists that I study up on, like every artist that I studied on, they had their particular period that they
Hmm.
went, depending on their life experiences, and then their art kind of pushed them in that direction,
Right.
so basically it's like they utilize their art to kind of tell the story and the journey. So that was kind of like the same with me, which
Mm.
in particularly one of the periods that I went through was like this jazz period.
Mm.
Because at the time my father, he was a huge jazz enthusiast. So almost every night we would just, sit in the living room and just listen to jazz music. And
Mm.
then eventually I learned how to play the piano. And
Okay.
so I got a little bit of musicality, to me. So
Hmm.
with that, the music just kind of inspired me to do paintings, a series of paintings of different jazz artists that motivated me during the
Nice.
time, and I was more so interested in a lot of the musicians, from the 1920s up to the 60s, like, Louis Armstrong,
Hmm.
Count Basie,
Hmm.
um, Nat King Cole,
Hmm.
artists like that. And I just, would do series of paintings of, those musicians. And then I think maybe that went on for probably like a few years. And I ended up roommating with a friend, and he's also an artist, and we're kind of like night and day, but we still kind of got along. He did a lot of abstract interpretive art, and I
Hmm.
was still kind of, doing my art with the jazz music. And that was kind of before I got into, the work that I've done today.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so he saw my work, and he was mad impressed by it, but he did ask me this this one question. um how can you relate to these people that you paint? you know
Hmm.
and I had to sit there and think. It was like,
Yeah.
well, musician, they're a musician, but when you think about it, like, I haven't really gone through a lot of the stuff that they went through. I never been on drugs, I never been alcoholic. At
Hmm.
times, I never went to jail or dealt with racial oppressions that they've dealt with.
Right.
So that caused me to kind of, I was kind of thrown for a loop for a moment, because now it just really, what it did is it pushed me to do some actual soul searching,
Hmm.
for my particular voice. Because painting musicians, although that was dope, and it kind of showed my appreciation for the music, um, it didn't really necessarily give me any room to develop my own creative voice, as far
Gotcha.
as style and storytelling. So it was this one moment where I was able to go to my first art festival, and that was in Gainesville, Florida.
Okay.
And when I traveled there, my pop traveled with me and everything. And it was a great success. I was able to sell a few art pieces and, prints and stuff, and I made a good amount of money. So when I came back, I was able to um, kind of afford the equipment that I need to build my own canvases. Because after
Hmm.
observing my friend and noticing that a lot of the work that he's created, he's actually built his own canvases.
He
So
made
it's
his own cameras,
like,
right?
yeah, so it's like, I want to go ahead and, into that avenue and start building my own canvases, because for one, it's a lot cheaper than
Yes.
going to a store. So after I did that, I wanted to start off like real big, just create real big. So that's where it kind of introduced me to a brand new style of painting. I didn't want to really do any of the jazz art anymore, but I wanted to kind of um, get into like some other forms of art. So I started watching a lot of other artists like Justin Bua in particularly. He's one of my favorite artists, um, a New Yorker. And I love the different view perspectives that he's done with not only people, because that's what he's really known for.
Hmm.
It's like just the over exaggeration of the human anatomy, and
Yeah.
it has this real grit to it. It's very urban, and and stuff like that. But I really love the backgrounds that he did, as far as like the cityscapes, and the way he would paint buildings, and they have this like really rubbery kind of image to it. So I wanted to do something kind of similar as far as the view perspectives, and
Hmm.
just kind of develop my own style from there. So I experimented a little bit with different view perspectives, and I started studying on um, different techniques that would help me kind of, form and cultivate that style even further. S-
Hmm.
And and then after that, I just started, you know, getting into other um, styles of art when it comes to like architecture, and and that's how I became who I am today. So this urban neo contemporary kind of landscape artist.
That's what's up, man. It's always great. My, I don't know, how everyone else feels yet. Those who subscribe and download and listen and view, but out of the three chapters, my favorite is always the first one. I always love to hear how it kind of all began, um, and even though everyone's obviously different,
Mhm.
um, but there's a lot of similarity in that we have as creatives when it comes to you know our beginnings and what led us to where we are.
Mhm.
Um, I thought of two questions, and I don't like to interrupt too tough while you're telling your journey. So I want to write them down and ask after you finished your first chapter. What was the drawing that you were introduced to? I remember you said that when you saw this drawing and you were like, that kind of like, inspired something in you. Do you remember what it was of?
Yes. Actually, my father did a drawing of my sister. He's no artist in any form of fashion. He has a little bit of drawing ability, but he did a drawing of my younger sister. And when I saw that, it kind of intrigued me, because I never really seen. That was my first time ever seeing somebody draw. So
Hmm.
that fascinated me like right off the rip, and that's where I started kind of getting into drawing myself. So that's what kind of got me started.
Gotcha. And you mentioned him a few times in telling uh, your beginning part of your journey. How much of an influence has your father played for you?
um it was he was pretty involved in a lot of the interests that I've had
Mhm.
growing up. I think in particularly with music, again, because he was a huge jazz enthusiast. So
Mhm.
um like I said, we would listen to all types of jazz music from the 70s to the 80s into the early 90s. And that would initially kind of influence me musically, because at the time, I think I was 11 years old when I started learning how to play.
Hmm.
So I would take, you know, all the things that my father would introduce me to, and I would try to incorporate it into a lot of my music.
Mm.
As far as art wise, I was pretty much, I don't know, I guess I was just pretty much on my own when it came to like the art. I know I can't really remember some things that he's done to kind of, help me during my creative journey. Um, but I do remember this one moment where he created this huge model of a city, and it was made out of styrofoam and everything, for me and my sisters. I thought that was pretty dope, for him to like create this huge model. He never finished it, by the way,
Mm.
because of work and everything. But that's something that definitely kind of stuck with me as a child to this day. So,
And it, there's a reason why, I'm going down this road, because I always run into the same point with every creative. Now, your father made this huge model,
mhm.
cityscape type thing, right? And then there's your art today. Do you definitely believe, even if you accredit it to like a dormant type of thing, do you definitely believe that that played some part in getting you where you are now? Even if it was like a dormant feeling that you didn't necessarily know, you know, where to place it, but it's still something that you very much remember, apparently.
Mhm.
And then, like I was saying, granted, your father wasn't necessarily a creative influence like that, but at the same time, he was there to take you to Florida. You know what I'm saying? Your first beginning paintings was because of the music you would listen with him, listen to with him. The whole creative, any and everything started with that drawing. So, like subconsciously, if not consciously, he's definitely been there, making an impact on you. Do you think that there are some dots that just possibly weren't connected, but definitely were there to connect?
Mhm.
And then hearing about this landscape, and then look at your work now. You know, I could be fishing. I don't know, but I'm just saying. Like, do you think that maybe that played definitely some significance?
Come to think about it, I think at that moment, during the whole time, when he made that model, I believe that was like a seed that was kind of,
Mm.
and um, afterwards, I didn't really think about it. Um, well, I didn't really think about it afterwards, but now that I kind of, go back into those memories, I do feel like it was a seed that was planted, and then now it's starting to like grow, now from, the type of art that I'm doing today.
Mm.
And um, yeah, so, but that's pretty much kind of like the only thing that I kind of, the only dot that I can pretty much connect. I
Fair
think the
enough.
rest of the dots kind of stem from my own personal experiences.
Yeah.
I think one of them is being able to travel abroad for the first time. You
Okay.
know, yeah, I went to Paris, um, and I went to Nice, South France, and that kind of changed my whole perspective when it comes to.
Mm.
Um, I won't say it was a culture shock, but I was definitely um, in awe. When it came to the architecture, the different buildings, and
Gotcha.
that kind of broadened my 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 vision, when it comes to the type of work that I do now. So when I got back, you know, I had I definitely had a new perspective on how I see, um, you know, the world around me,
Yeah.
everything, around me, as far as architecture and, structure. And I was able to kind of create my own, I was able to create my own voice from there, So I
Oh,
think that was like a stemming point to where I
okay.
was able to get a whole new um, jump from there.
Okay. I um like I said, when you were explaining it to me, I I just, it was something I was wondering, like, wow, I wonder if, if that was, like you said, like it was a seed, you know. I have many of them in my experience growing
Mm.
up as creative. There's several seeds, and it's funny. It's like with each year, with each new venture, I start to realize that, oh snap, yeah, how about that? That was a seed. Look at that, So it's always interesting. Um, you said that you had a tough time growing up. You had kids messing with you and stuff, and everything, and you know, your art was like a release,
Mm.
when you came back home. So, did any of your drawings at that time resemble what you were going through when you had that hard time, when you were being picked on, when you didn't have that, camaraderie that you would hope for as a kid? You know what I mean? Like, did did any of that come out in your art?
Mainly, most of the work that I've created at that time was, it was derived from a place of wanting to escape somewhere,
Hmm.
a place where I just wanted to kind of be to myself, and, just, be to my own mind, my own creativity. And like I said, it became that security blanket. Um, you know, I, I had very few friends. I didn't have a lot of friends. So that gave me a chance to really just spend more time to myself and really kind of hone my skills. And um, at the time, I didn't really understand what the art, just how deeply embedded and how important the art was to me. You know, I,
Hmm.
all I just knew is, I mean, it could have been like a coping mechanism,
Yeah.
to kind of get my mind off of, everything that was going on, with me as a child. And still to this day, I still kind of look at it as not just a coping mechanism, but a place of escape,
Yeah.
where I can just, you know, um, you know, I kind of treat it as therapy,
Mm.
for the most part, a place where I feel secure, I feel, um, in a way, kind of like self-validation, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, so I think that's pretty much where that came from.
Do you remember at all any of what those early during that time, what those artworks were of?
Um, I remember I done one piece. It's titled "The Incubating Room,"
Mm.
and this piece is basically about um, just sitting in a space where you can just develop yourself. Not just as an artist, but also as a a man, as a person, as a human being. Um, but it also kind of serves as a prison, you know what I'm saying? Because
Mm.
sometimes I can become a prison within my own mind, my own creativity, but it's a prison that I don't want to leave because I find a lot of safety and security within that space. And I think in the image, it has this window that kind of looks like prison
Hmm.
bars, you know, and it's kind of dark and kind of gritty, but at the same time, it's a place that gives me comfort, you know. And but also it serves as kind of like a double entendre, a place of security, but also um, when I was in my darkest place, you know, when I was dealing with a lot of the rejection or whatnot,
Hmm.
and just kind of sitting there and just allowing that room to, I'm not gonna say consume me, but just kind of embrace me,
Mm.
allow the creativity to embrace me, it's almost like the dark spaces within that room was just kind of embracing me, and I was just kind of sitting there, um, just soaking it all in. And there's another piece that I've done titled Detour, which this piece I've created right before I moved here to Atlanta. I think it
Okay.
was back in 2013. And it's the largest piece that I've done. It's like 12 feet by 5.5 feet.
Whoa.
And it was a painting of me on this train. It's like a giant train headed towards the city of promise. And the city of promise is made of gold, which represents, of course, Atlanta. Um, where I'm from, it's a small town and it's not a lot going on, So on this train, I painted myself on this train, and I have this, I guess it's like fabric in my hand, but it's made of piano keys. So it's just, I think that that depiction is pretty much me um, bringing my gift with me, to this city
Mm.
of promise in hopes of um, getting a better opportunity, more doors opening up for me or whatnot. So, and I think that was kind of prophetic too, because when I first started on the piece, I didn't really know at the time that I was moving to Atlanta. So I think that was more of kind of like a prophetic piece that I did. And um, when I finished it, I was like, wow, this is kind of like a premonition to where my life was going to be headed. So, and I can't really, there was one other piece that I've done, and it was like a black and white piece, and I call it Diagnosis. And it's pretty much me sitting at a keyboard playing, and then there's an empty Crown Royal bottle, just kind of sitting there. And, there was some descriptions on a bottle that's kind of similar to descriptions of a medicine bottle.
Okay.
It's pretty much talking about time when I was dealing with a lot of loneliness. And
Mm.
I just, at the time, I was dealing with a breakup.
Okay.
So I did a painting based off of my heartbreak, loneliness. And I don't know, I guess at the time, I kind of reverted to drinking, but it didn't really, I mean, thank God I didn't turn into an alcoholic, at the time.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to kind of insert that, into the work, as part of the story. And, I think that was just a way of just kind of like dealing with a lot of my loneliness, during that time. And, in hopes to kind of close that chapter, because I feel like if I paint about it, then I can at least close that chapter and put it on the shelf, because oftentimes
Hmm.
whatever I'm dealing with and whatever I'm feeling, if I don't paint about it, it kind of just, claws at me. And then once I paint about it, then it kind of gives me that relief, and then I can just move on to something else. So, um,
That's I, wow. I can't say that as a creative you're the only person who does that, or their work can represent that. But I definitely can say that you are the first creative that I've spoken with that told me that their work can do that for them. And you know, I, yes, I've heard, I've had a lot of people say, obviously their work is an outlet for them, and
mhm,
and that tends to be very common. But it's very interesting, um, what you said, where it's it helps you close out, you know, that chapter. It helps you. It gives you some closure, allowing you to be able to move on past that point. Um, it At the very least, you were the only one who verbalized it that way, uh,
mhm,
and I think that's really interesting. I I'm pretty sure that I don't know. I want to start. You really you set me back real quick, brother. I know I'm serious because I don't know if that's something that I should start doing. You know,
I mean,
uh,
it definitely
and
helped me.
it would take someone like yourself listening to what you're saying, listening to how art very much became started off as a, a huge coping mechanism for you.
Mhm,
You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't necessarily something you had to connect with to help you. That's kind of how it was when it started for you. But I think that and obviously there's art therapy, so the understanding is true. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm
mhm,
just saying that I'm just saying that I know for me, there's a obviously things that I need to you know close out with, you know what I mean, and get
mhm.
closure on that I may have subdued or whatever. And I never really looked at my art that way, my creativity that way. I know I would if I because I've painted before,
Mhm.
and stuff, and wood carved or whatever. Anyway, when I'm writing, I enjoy writing. I enjoy it very much. I'm immersed in it. Um, I know some of my characters can be a release of maybe a personality that I have or something like that. But never am I drawn to create because of a situation that I need to make sure I have closure on. And I
Right.
actually think that maybe I should do that. I find it that's really interesting, man. It really is. That's
I mean, you
wow.
should. I mean, you should definitely. It helped me out in a lot of tight spaces, because one of the things that I'm dealing with now, and I don't really talk about a lot, is just like the mental health aspect
Yeah.
of it. And I believe like now my artwork is definitely filling some gaps, with that. There's times where I just feel like I'm going crazy,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I can truly say that if it wasn't for my art, I wouldn't be here. I
Wow.
mean, I,
Yeah.
I can truly say that. So I use, painting as kind of like a diary or a journal,
Mhm.
you know, in some form or fashion to kind of just get outside of my head because like when you're alone, it just seems like the enemy comes to like wreak havoc,
Oh yeah.
yeah, do some damage, and I know that's not healthy for me. So me being in this studio right now is definitely helping me through a lot of mental tough times, you know, and I'm grateful every time I'm able to step into this studio. It's almost like it's like a safe haven, and again, therapy is like therapy for me, you
Mm,
know, and the manner that I paint now is always stemmed from escapism,
mm.
being able to escape from things that, you know, brings me worry and yeah, so I mean, it's a process, it's
Yeah.
not easy. It's not easy, but I tend to know how to work my way through it whenever I'm using a brush, to the canvas. And I just tend to just get lost and just kind of detach myself from my current reality and just kind of get immersed into the worlds that I like to build. So, but I mean, it's definitely it's definitely therapeutic. It's like a diary. So, I think, yeah, you should definitely try it.
I will now. That's for sure. But I think that's an excellent transition into chapter 2, which you titled "My Creative Evolution."
Mm. And again, my evolution started from, when I had that conversation with my former roommate,
Mm,
some years back, you know, asking me that question, um, and again, I had to do some soul searching and just like really figure out like how can I stand out as an artist,
mm.
because especially coming up to Atlanta, the good thing about Atlanta is that everybody, is a creative,
Yeah,
but bad thing about Atlanta is that everybody is a creative,
everybody's a creative.
you know,
Right.
and you see a lot of artwork, and I, I'm not the type of artist that bash other artists' work, but after a while, you do kind of see a lot of repetitiveness,
Yeah,
especially on social media,
yeah.
and you just wonder, like, how can I not allow myself to be pigeonholed into like one category of artists, especially me being a black man,
Yeah.
because like one thing about me is that like I don't want to be pigeonholed to just being a black artist, just doing black art.
Right.
So um again, my work um is centered around escapism. So when I came up to Atlanta, me coming from a small town, you know, s- some places more rural than others, you know, I was amazed, just, not just living in Atlanta, but, just becoming, you know, immersed within the bowels of Atlanta, and just being
Mm,
able to step outside the door and boom, you're surrounded by tall buildings and people and a lot of hustle and bustle and just action everywhere. That's something that was new to me. So in that sense, it kind of shifted my creativity um to a totally different lane, you
mm.
know. And again, I wanted to create art that can ignite the imagination, allow people to um, escape to a world that they can explore and play and just simply get lost in, and and just be able to be themselves and be able to um, The imagination, I always say this, that imagination is currency, you know.
Yes,
And
it is.
if you don't have a place to really exercise your imagination, then it's going to be kind of hard to, navigate through your creativity. At least that's my opinion.
I agree with you 100%.
hmm So it allowed me to um, evolve to a different level of what I do. So I really reverted more to painting less people, because at the time I was, you know, painting a lot of portraits and
Sure.
inserting a lot of people elements into my work. And I just felt like I didn't want to do that anymore. As
Mm,
far as like the jazz aspect of it, creating people, I don't want to create that anymore. So I wanted to focus more so on the environment. So one of the things that I started to do was walk the city. I would travel within the alleyways and just take pictures of different angles of tall buildings, or whether it be a traffic light or a trash can or a fire hydrant or some asphalt or whatnot, and just try to pretty much research, just get out and collect information and data, that I can use, in later projects,
yeah.
and create, I don't know, kind of like this hybrid of a city that is alive,
Mm,
that has its own personality, because I believe that, each city does have its own personality and it
mm,
has its own story. I personally, I become more attracted to older cities,
mm,
than places that is a little bit more modern and new, because I
yeah.
believe within older cities, they tell the best stories, you
Mm,
know, and just the grit and grind and just how weathered it looks and everything.
yeah. I
It
get you. Yeah.
wants me to learn more about,
Hmm.
um, what happened in this particular area. So, when I go home, I would take all these pictures and I would just focusing on creating a visual story, you
Mm,
know, these places that I've observed, and try to, I don't know, create a personality, you know, um, out of these places that I've seen. So oftentimes I would distort certain buildings and landscapes and kind of make it feel like it's contorting and twisting, and fill it with movement, and try to give it a certain type of emotion, and also do it through colors as well and different textures. So if I'm doing something that is kind of filled with excitement, then I will use more brighter colors, and
mm,
the lines and the curves will be a little bit more exaggerated. And if I'm creating an environment out of anger, then I will use a lot of warms and reds, and everything would just look chaotic and like torn and destroyed. Or if I'm doing something that is a little bit more reserved and calm and mellow, then I would use a little bit more calm, cooler colors, and the environment would be a little bit more toned down and softer. So, and that was
mm,
also my way of practicing, trying to create some type of, just trying to create some type of visual emotion,
mm,
and if my way of creating a portrait through um, the environment, and allow people to come in and kind of give their own interpretation of um, what that environment, you know, how that environment makes them feel. So, I still got a lot more evolving to do, because I'm still learning. I'm still going out and looking at different landmarks and just trying to figure out, how to further enhance my voice and Also, I want to kind of work people back into it.
Hmm.
Instead, I don't want to actually put them in there, but I want to do them in a way of maybe like a billboard or a poster or a mural or whatnot. So I think that's a pretty dope way to kind of incorporate people, back into my world. So yeah.
Uh, you said that you still have a lot of evolving to do, and that's the that's one of the great things about being a creative. So much of our ability is drawn off of our experiences, you know, and and so many things that make our styles or our signature, is drawn off of w- how we understand now,
Mm.
you know, as in comparison to how we understood before. And I think it's one of the things that age enhances. You know what I'm saying? Typically, it, we see age as slowing us down and stuff. But for a creative
Mhm.
mind, especially one that's you looking at the world to pull right from for creative inspiration and development, time just continues to sharpen that skill, especially you
Mm.
know when you're coming at it from a humble perspective, like you are. You know what I'm saying? You're saying that, look, I'm still evolving, and I still want to see this and still want to see that,
Mm.
and the ideas start pouring in. I want to incorporate people. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. The mind of a creative, uh, you know, personality, the experience of a creative. I said this before, and I'll say it again. I think that we are by far the most unique people you'll ever meet. Um,
Yeah.
doesn't matter which art form or genre. Just a creative
Mm.
person is special. Um, and taking that as a good transition, with into chapter 3 until the which is the where your creative journey is presently, right? You
Mm.
saying that you're still evolving. So you titled chapter 3 "My Future Ambitions." Go ahead.
Well, with the work that I'm doing now, again, like where I'm currently at, it's all about creating a world that people can get lost in. And I want to be able to share that world with people who has a willing heart to um, utilize their imagination to insert themselves into my worlds that I create. And I want it to be beyond just painting. You know, um, I think I pretty much got that down pat, but I want to be able to um, expand to other avenues of art when it comes to shoot animation, filmmaking,
Hmm.
um, sculpture. That's another avenue. And I believe that I don't want to just limit myself to just the only way that I can do that is to venture out into other art forms, and then eventually blend them all together, with the painting aspect and even with the music. I want to be able to um, bring the music into um, what I'm creating now. And I actually have a show coming up this June titled Eternal City. where it's pretty much me creating a world that, I'm inviting people to explore
Mm,
and, come up with their own um, interpretation of what this environment means to them. And hopefully they can be able to relate and see themselves, I think to me it's like more so of a social experiment.
okay. Good.
Just hearing the conversations, like these places that I've created and what these different places mean to them. It could probably be, something that reminds of their childhood, or where they used to grow up at. And I don't know, and just kind of see how they would interact with each
Mhm.
other, just like I said, the conversations. And hopefully I can just physically create a world that in 3D that people can come to and not just see the work, but they can use all their senses. They can feel the work, they can see, they can smell it, they can just,
Mm,
just go wild,
mm.
and you know, and eventually, you know, I don't know, man. Just I don't know. Just I feel like I'm kind of scatterbrained right now.
No, no, not at
Because I'm
all. I
trying
think
to get because it's like I see it, I hear it, but it's like it's kind of hard to like really explain and get it out. But ultimately, I want to create a 3D space that people can come and just physically interact with, on a massive scale. And, you know, um, just kind of see, the feedback, people's feedback and, wherever my creativity takes me from there, Um, I think that's what I see right now. I mean, like it's like when it comes to like my future, it's kind of hard to like really. It's kind of hard to like really pinpoint what
yeah.
exactly I want to do with it. I'm still kind of putting all the pieces together per
Mhm.
se, and I just feel like everything that I'm saying is kind of like in bits and pieces, and yeah, I'm still kind of figuring everything out.
Well, I mean, I think the reason why I'm jiving with everything you're saying is because how else is it going to be? It's going to be in bits and pieces right now. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? You're talking about something that's going that you're looking towards happening. And until it has happened, it's gonna be bits and pieces. Every future plan is bits and pieces.
yeah,
What brings it into fruition is bringing those bits and pieces together. And then once they're together, then they're no longer bits and pieces, but then it's no longer your future, it's your present, right?
yeah,
So that's what it is. You know what I mean? If we don't have a crystal ball, it's just going to be bits and pieces. And then
right,
we keep on collecting more and more bits and pieces, keep drawing out those bits and pieces, making them more pieces or bigger pieces until they become a whole. So
yeah,
it um I understood, I think at least, I understood what you are trying to shoot for, you know. And and that works, you know what I'm saying? At the same time, I'm never gonna fully understand the vision until you got it in front of me.
yeah.
You know what
I
I'm
just
saying?
feel like if I just keep working, on what I'm doing, then eventually like everything would just kind of um put itself together.
Yeah.
And also like the different people that I meet along the way
Hmm.
that will, um that would eventually see my vision and kind of
Hmm.
contribute to it. Um hopefully, everything would just put itself together. But all I can do now is just, you know, continue working. You know, I think that's the best strategy right now. And who if I meet along the way, collabs, art collabs, and then eventually, you know, everything will just kind of reveal itself to me, and I'm able to kind of um, go from there. And so,
Yeah. I you when you said excuse me, when you said, hopefully create like this 3D world where you can feel in all your five senses. It made me think of the artist that we were speaking about earlier, the creator we were speaking about earlier, Kamar Bazaar, the painter with, he has that dot type style. Calling it a dot style, please forgive me, Kamar. That's not the actual name of the style, but anyway, he's recently started a what is it called? Can't think of the right terminology, but anyway, he started a new series. I don't know what's wrong forgetting the word. A new series of paintings where they're tactile. Because when you look at his stuff, it almost looks like you can touch it. You could feel the dots, right? And when you look at his stuff, so now he actually did that. Now he's brought it about where he's had some exhibits where some of his work you can actually feel the dots that you see. And I thought that was just pretty cool. It made me think of that when you said it. So and he recently changed his name to Kamar Bazaar, because we're all in this evolutionary stage as creatives, every single one of us. I don't care where we are along our journey, we are in an evolutionary stage,
right?
And I don't think that, how should I say this? I'm going to put this properly. I don't think an authentic creative will ever or can ever see their final form. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they'll ever see their final form of evolution. I don't see how that could be possible. Just listening to you right now, because I'm a creative, I have thought of 15 different things. You know what I'm saying? Just listening to you. And that happens with everybody I'm interviewing. I'm thinking of something else, and then, you go outside and you see this and you see that. And, it's like, okay, so I'm an author and and that's the journey I'm on right now, but I'm also a painter. I haven't done it in a while, but I do, so, and many times I'll get an idea and, and I'll think of something. I'm like, would it be better to write that, to make a story around that? Or would it be better to make this a painting? Or would it be better to make this a illustration? Or would this be better to make it a wood carve? It's just, in a lot of times, that's what I'm wrestling with. I have in my notepad, I have several painting projects, at least 50, that I feel would be best represented as an art form, as a painting art form.
Right.
And I haven't touched them yet, because right now, I'm trying to continue to evolve, or rather develop, my writing. But I keep putting these ideas down, because who knows, maybe in 10 years I would have, I don't know, felt that now it's time to get back into painting. Maybe I've accomplished whatever it was that I could have accomplished or would have liked to accomplish with writing, and now it's just like, what, I can't delay the painting anymore. You know what I'm saying? Because one thing is for sure, we're not getting any younger, and we don't know when that day will come for us,
right?
But we know it will come. So, and then we got all these ideas as creatives. Erica Dunlap, I was introduced to her as a photographer, an
Mhm.
excellent photographer she is. But come to find out, while interviewing her, she's an excellent painter. And
Mhm.
she's only been painting for a year, but I mean, you would have think that she's been doing it her whole life, but she's been a creative her whole life, so it only makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
And
I feel the
she,
same way with like music too,
yeah,
because I've known I have friends that they've done where they played a certain instrument all their life, and
mm,
then as soon as they decided to pick up a different instrument, is almost as if they've been playing that instrument all their life too.
yeah,
But I think it's more so um, how they think musically,
hmm,
and for some people it just easily translates um, with them, through different instruments, especially when it comes to like my creativity,
yeah,
um, with animation, getting the
hmm,
digital art. I've just started digital art, and because I have such an extensive background with painting, you know, like all of the um, practical techniques that I've developed painting on canvas just easily transferred to
just yeah,
the digital. I mean, of course, I still have to learn the programs and everything and how to do this,
hmm,
press this button and stuff. But as far as the painterly aspect of it, when it comes to like color theory and everything, that's still intact. So it was a lot easier um, transition for me, when it came to digital art.
it is art. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
and that's the thing. It's like that. You know, I think of Sammy Davis Jr.
mm,
He was. I don't know. I can't even say which one it is. Anyway, when I came to know who he was, it was through tap dancing.
mm,
Okay, but come to find out, he's an excellent singer,
mhm,
great actor. I think plays at least 5 instruments.
right.
I know definitely the drums. You know what I'm saying? And probably a great painter too. So it's just like it's like when you have that creative spirit in you, and then on top of that, you're really good. It can just transfer. It can just transfer in so many different ways. All you have to do is say, you know what, this is the thing I want to get into right now, and then you take all of that natural creative talent with you.
Mm.
Um, I want very much now to talk about the first thing that I saw that caught my eye, which is the painting that you have behind you.
Oh, you talking about the on the city piece?
This, yes, yeah. So first of all, what is the name of this
Um, this particular one is called Downtown Braxton.
downtown Brack?
It's within, and again, it's for my upcoming show in June, titled Eternal City. And with this particular piece behind me is it's basically is showing just a portion of a district, which I call the corner district of Eternal City. And I always wanted to do an area view city, to kind of,
Mm-hmm.
show kind of like my creative chops or
Yeah,
whatnot. But I
you
wanted to
showed
do
it.
it,
That's for sure.
yeah, but I wanted to do it at a grand scale. And again, I wanted to create a place where people can just get lost in it, and it's like for
Mm-hmm.
hours at a time. Or if they leave and then come back to it, they always see something
See
different.
something else.
Yeah. So this piece behind me is I mean, to me, it's more than just a project. It's a journey for me, because like it
Mm,
seems like every time I start on this piece, it's almost like I'm taking a trip, to somewhere that is not within my reality,
mm,
and I'm able to kind of just maneuver through the city and just kind of okay, where can I, what can I develop here, or what can I develop here, or what can I put here? It's almost like I'm on an actual construction site, And in real time, I'm just kind of, putting different things together. So with me, I'm wearing multiple hats. I'm the architect, I'm the general contractor, I'm the landscape artist or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, it's quite a journey. So there's 13 additional pieces that I'm doing along with this that I
Hmm.
haven't really. I've shown some pieces on social media, but there's some other pieces that I haven't really shown yet that I'm kind of leaving until the show. And but this is definitely a statement piece, that I'm hoping to get a lot of traction and visibility. And I'm having a lot of fun with it, and
Mm.
it's one of the pieces that, again, is part of my therapy.
Right. Right.
Whenever I'm having a crappy day, I come to the studio and I start working on this piece, and I just feel light. I feel a lot of positive energy. Um, you know, um, working on this, and I don't know, it just changes my mood, and just makes me feel a whole lot better.
Listen, once again, listen, listening to you, it it makes me understand how you could do a painting like that. How long would you say that took you?
Um, I've been working on that particular piece since, I want to say, October. Because I'm doing it in rotation
Hmm.
along with the other pieces.
But even
So,
even still, like thinking about what you said, thinking about how it's a release, it's a coping mechanism. When I see that, I get that because one of the things that I say to myself is, man, the detail. I don't think I would have had the discipline to see that through, let alone think of it. But because it seemed like it took such a, it's very methodical, and,
mm,
and it's exacting, it's the precision, and so that's all centered around massive patience.
mm,
But so for the regular person, it's just like, man, I couldn't do it. But when it's not just an artwork for you, it's actually a calming space for you, it's actually a coping mechanism
mm,
for you. Then it makes perfect sense how you can come up with that, how you can design and complete that in the way that you did, where you can consistently go back to it, like you said, and find things that you didn't see before, because you can't get all of that in one glimpse. That is definitely a come back and get some more from it, type of work. And I think that it takes a creative only like yourself to do something like that, because of all the things that I said, the precision, the how exacting it is, how methodical it is. It
mm,
You gotta find peace and serenity and joy and coming up with it, let alone completing it. I mean, it's serious. It really is. And I was amazed, and I wanted to speak with you so I can hear you talk about it. But then when you explained, who you are and how your your creative work uh, consults you,
mm,
and comforts you, then it made it made sense. It did not make sense before, but now I don't know if I understand it. And I wasn't looking to understand it. I wasn't looking
mm,
to understand it. I mean,
mm,
I thought the generally, okay, it's cityscape. What is there to understand? You
Mm.
know, but now I don't know, man. Now I understand how it came alive, and it's one thing when you can create beautiful work, and I've known a lot of creatives who can make beautiful work. It's another thing when you can make work that is like it has a soul. It's like it's living, you know. And as they say, it speaks to me. Like that's one of those art pieces that very much are vibrant. It's alive. It's speaking, and every time you look at it, it's saying something. You know.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I don't know. I think part of it is just I like to torture myself too.
Yeah.
know,
I guess so.
You know how they say, like, pain is pleasure. There's a lot of there was numerous times where I was like just dog tired, feet hurting, back aching, but it's like I couldn't put that brush down. I was like, I got to get in that last little detail before I hang it up for the night. And it's when you're doing, when you do what you do for a long time, and I know for me, the patience factor is definitely key in a lot of the type of work that I do. To me, time just seems to, just kind of go by. Well, time is not even a factor, because I just tend to like just get lost in it. I can literally sit in one spot for hours at a time and just focus on one little intricate detail. Have my music on, have little things that kind of stimulate my brain as I'm working, and just get lost in it. And unfortunately, because, I'm trying to prepare for this show, it's like I wish that I can just dedicate all of my time to this painting behind me, but because I'm doing everything in rotation, I have to meet a deadline.
Right.
Sometimes breaking away from it kind of hurts, because I want to, just stay there like forever in that moment and just create. And by the way, that's something that I'm not used to, because like I'm used to just spending months at a time on one piece. But I'm preparing a show and I'm working on 14 pieces, for the show. So, it's definitely a new level of discipline. And it's something that I don't mind going through, because I need this discipline.
Yeah.
And it's teaching me a lot. It's teaching me about time management. The skills are there.
Right.
It's just more so learning how to manage my time and come up with a strategic formula to getting all these pieces done in a timely manner. So I'm having to like create a vision board and a calendar. So, okay, on this day, I'm going to work on this painting. Then on this day, I'm going to work on that painting, and just kind of maximize the amount of time that I work on a daily basis. And then some days I'm not going to always be here in the studio, but okay, well, I'll just take my work, to the house and work on it, or, because I'm also working on some write-ups for these pieces, it's kind of challenging my brain in that aspect, because again, storytelling, it's all about creating a story behind each piece that I'm creating. So I'm being challenged that way too. And hopefully by June, I'll have a strong show. That's kind of like the end goal. That's what's keeping me going and keeping me motivated, so, but I'm just like, when you're passionate about what you do, certain things that might seem difficult, it becomes easy, because the drive is already there. And times like I don't even want to go to, I don't even want to go to sleep. I don't even want to go home. And just keep going and keep going. But even that within itself, I need to learn discipline because
Yeah.
I'm not as young as I used to be.
Hmm.
I'm not getting no younger, so my body can only, what I'm saying, my mind, my mind
Yeah.
telling me this, but my body.
I was saying, nah,
So,
dude, we need
yeah,
some
like
rest.
no, you need to get some rest, and my body will let me know, like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm gonna shut down on you. You better
Yep.
hang it up.
Yep.
You know,
It's true, man. It's so true. Like, um, that I'll know I have. I try to do discipline boy, it's hard. But I try to tell myself, okay, look, man, you need to write 3 more chapters. 3 more chapters, get them in today. 3 more chapters. Remember, today's 3 chapters. And you'd be procrastinating, get around to it, because because this is what you did. You know what you're about to do, right? So it's like, oh man, all right, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it. But then as soon as you as soon as you get there, as soon as I sit down and I'm at that computer and I have no distraction, boom, ideas is coming. Coming. And then you're going, man, and it's almost like an out of body experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just going away. And then you look up and it's like, oh snap, I did it. But then it's like, oh dang, now I need to do a little bit more. It is, and sure enough, you run into that where it's just like, okay, all right, dang, my shoulders is hurting, all right. But let me, you know what? Okay, let me just describe this scene right here. Let me just do this scene. Okay, cool. It's like, okay, all right, I did the scene, but dang, but now I've already created the setting, and now I want to create that emotional feel I need you to get from it. Okay, and then it's like you get so involved with it that now it's hard to step away.
Yeah.
You get so it's like you're off into another world.
Like it's like all the pains that you used to feel, like your back aching and feet hurting. It seems like, I mean, it's still there, but you're like, you don't even think about it anymore.
You don't even think
It's
about
like
it.
that creativity is like, adding that last little touch on the pain, and it's like, oh dang, I want to add this. Like, oh man, I can add this, and then like, before you know it, like when you supposed to quit like an hour ago, you going 6 more hours strong, and it's like, but you just, and then some days I forget to eat, I forget to drink, I forget to sleep, and I'm just going off of just pure creativity.
Pure creativity.
So, it's dangerous. I need to stop doing
it. Really is. It really is. So, but like you said, it's having this show that's about to come up for you, it's making you learn discipline, and it's true. I mean, we the truth is that we're creatives, and we have to feed that creative spirit. We got to, right? The reality is the world is not here to nurture your creative spirit, so to speak. You got things you got to do, bills need to be paid, family, whatever. So it's like, no, so we have, as creatives, we got to challenge ourselves, right? All right, well, I'm a creative, but let me find a creative way to be disciplined. With what I got to do. But man,
it's still on life, man. Life is still on life. So, I mean, for me, it's balance. I got to learn balance, because like I can be in the studio. If it was left up to me, I'd be in the studio like for weeks straight. Like you said, bills still need to be paid, and I still got to live life, touch grass, got to catch up, with my, friends and family.
Yeah.
And that's something that towards the end of last year, I was definitely working on, just getting out more, supporting more of my artist friends, instead of just shutting in the studio, all day, so there's something this year that I'm hopefully into, continue to keep doing. It's just, remembering that, you're a human being, you still need to socialize, You have friends that you need to show support as well, because if you want people to support you, then you got to get out and show support.
Support them, yeah.
Yeah. So, um,
it's life is a beautiful struggle, right?
For sure.
I want to get into the segment now where I ask, the 4 or 5 or 6 generic questions that I ask all the creatives that I interview. Starting with the first question: do you consider yourself a creative?
Yes, all the way.
All the way. 100%.
I mean, it's not a. I mean, it's part of my life. It's imprinted. In my life. I'm never gonna stop being a creative. Shoot, even if I'm not painting, I'm still creating in my head.
Yeah.
So.
Some of these questions you actually answered, as a matter of fact, when we were already speaking. So I won't have you go into it again. That tends to happen a lot.
Well, I've learned that during interviews, I tend to ramble a lot. Like I would have a certain talking point, and then I would just go off into something else. Kind of, way off to the, from the original question that you asked me. So I apologize about that.
No, don't. And that's funny. You're not the first creative I've spoken with who says that. A lot. I would say at the very least, half of the creators I interviewed have said that. And here's the thing: this is the L.O.S.T Creative Podcast, man. I know how that creative mind works. So I don't. It may be rambling, as it's understood.
Fighting for words, man. Just be fighting.
But it's like I'm like, go ahead. No. At no point am I going to be like, okay, stop. Let's move on. It's like, nah. That's. This is a space for the to talk about your creative journey, and if you're a creative talking about your creative journey, more than likely your brain is going to start going every which way. So, man,
I appreciate that.
Let it rip. Because
make it easier.
One of the if you had have just stuck to explaining the chapter as you meant for it to be explained, or just stuck to answering the question, there's a lot of stuff that you express that if you had just stuck to what you initially want to say, you wouldn't have said, and the interview would have been all the less for it. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I love that. I mean, it's like, come on, you don't tell a creative in an interview to shut up. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? It's like, no, come on, let it go. So yeah, so I don't have any issue with it at all. I'm just saying, I just realized that, okay, well, there's no sense in asking that again because he already answered it. Right. How does you didn't I'll still ask this one anyway. As a creative, if you had the time, what art form would you like to get into and become good at, or a real focus?
Sculpture. I have it. It's just this vision that I have in my head right now, and I'm going to start this venture pretty soon. But it's again world building. Right. And me creating these large structures. I don't know, I guess you can call it installation art too,
Okay, yeah.
Just creating these large structures, and they have a lot of ingenuity, to it, that's functional, and also, just artistic, and again, it tells a story. So when people interact with it, it's more than just a sculpture or a work of art. Is an experience, so, and I feel that I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but definitely create something that's refreshing, that maybe people haven't really seen before, but it's all up in here. I haven't written it down yet, But definitely I want to get more into the sculpture. I want to get into creating like miniature dioramas of
Mhm.
small cities and things like that. I watch a lot of YouTube videos on people creating miniature cities and stuff like that, and I find that extremely fascinating.
Mhm.
And I've invested a lot of money in like the equipment to do that, So
Okay. I mean,
so it's
it seems like a natural progression for you almost. It's like here's look at your paintings, and then it would just seem like okay, the next thing is to make it 3D. You know what I mean? But
yeah, yeah, it's
uh,
everything that I'm doing now, I feel like it's in preparation for
mhm.
what I'm about to embark on in the near future. So, I don't think that, you know, um everything is like done at random. I think everything is strategically happening for a reason. So I
Right,
just need to be prepared for it when it does happen.
when it does that,
Yeah.
there you go. Um, how does being a black creative affect your work, or does being a black creative affect your work and the promotion of it?
Um, well, for me, being a black creative, um, like I said in the beginning, I definitely don't want to be pigeonholed.
Hmm.
Just you know, creating black art. I guess that's why I kind of, stemmed away from like portraiture,
Yeah.
and just kind of steered more into city landscape art.
Hmm.
Because I believe it's so much that I can tell, so many stories I can tell through architecture,
Hmm.
and um, and I can reach uh, um, a broader um, demographic of people. I mean, don't
Right.
get me wrong, I love my people,
Hmm.
but we're living in a whole world of different cultures and different types of people, and I don't know, like I just believe that my art is for everyone. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I
I
love,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
you know, I had this conversation with very last person I interviewed. Wow. uh, drawing a blank. What's the good brother's name? Um, uh, uh, Meech. Yeah. Um, and we were
Heard of
talking
each.
about
I'm
you.
familiar.
You
Yeah,
okay? Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
small
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. He's good.
Yeah,
Um, and we were talking about same thing, like not being pigeonholed. Black art, and it's just like, and I understand, the concern, but I'm all, for me, I'm always like, you know, so Monet can paint, you know, white people on the grass and all this other stuff, and it's just fine art. It's not white art.
right.
You dig what I'm saying? But if black people paint black people, oh, that's black art. It's like, what are you talking about? I mean, it's like that's no, this is art, and the person who created it happens to be black. In the
Right.
discussion. You know what I mean? And so because when we were speaking about that, he was he wanted to kind of he has like a tip a profile or a painting style, and whenever when he paints a person, and it it's like it's like his style. It's his signature way of painting them, and have like
Mm,
almost like a flat top. And you can tell that it's a black person. You
right.
know, even though it's very abstract, you can still tell that. And it's just like, okay, so what? This is art. Period. Period. It's not black art. Okay. If Monet is not white art, okay. If uh, if Monet is not white art, all right. if all the rest of them, okay, all those big names, Michelangelo is not white art. If all of that is not white art and that's fine art, then just because I'm black and I make a black paint a person with a black president doesn't mean it's black art.
Right.
It's what I mean. So, but once again, I still understand the concern because you have truth and reality, right? And we have to live in reality. So,
Right.
But yeah, I definitely understand exactly what you're saying. That you've been, your points are always well understood. At least on the L.O.S.T Creative Podcast, I've been vibing with you the whole time. What are you no, I'm sorry, before I get to that one, you may have answered this already, but I'm going to ask it again just in case you didn't actually name, you just named a particular person, not necessarily the most influential. But who is the creative that inspires you the most and why?
That's a hard question because it's
Okay, good. I'm glad I asked.
it's more than one artist. I already mentioned Justin Bieber, because of his art style. But there's many other artists that inspire me in different ways. There's this one Austrian artist by the name of what's his name? Starts with a Boca. Yeah, but he considers himself a spontaneous painter because of his color palette.
Okay.
He has an amazing color palette, and it's just the way he utilizes his colors and these spontaneous brushstrokes to create. He does a lot of portraiture and other subjects, but my favorite subjects that he creates is these landscapes and these cityscapes. Just using these crazy brushstrokes and amazing color combinations. And there's another artist that I really appreciate. His name is Greg. I think it's Greg Shumkins. He's like a surreal painter, and a lot of his stuff is like it's kind of folklore. It's like with animals kind of fused in with a lot of pop art, cartoons, and it has this like very hyper realistic quality to him, and it's really dope. And then there's some other artists that I'm inspired by.
So it's like a collective for you.
Yeah, I'll write this collective of artists that push me in different ways. Comes to drawing, painting, and even the storytelling aspect of it. Yeah. So.
Okay. All right. Good answer. And what are you the most thankful for as it relates to your creative journey?
Just being able to have a voice, my own creative voice, my own creative blueprint, fingerprint. And I would like to believe that I stand out,
I believe it.
Just hearing people, tell me that as soon as they seen my work, they automatically knew, without seeing my name, they automatically knew that it was me. So I think that says a lot about the type of work that I do, that it's not just, average, and it's not, that it stands out. And I can definitely appreciate that, and that's something that I continue to strive to try to stand out even more, so it gives me the motivation that I need to keep pushing further and just becoming even more bold and creative with the type of work that I do, and not being afraid to push through the ceiling, and push the envelope even further and get outside of the box, draw outside the lines, because oftentimes um, I tend to, that technical side of my brain tends to try to take over and be like, no, paint
Yeah.
like this. So this is too like, no, I mean, I want to paint this way, I don't have to be technically correct every single time, because when it comes to creativity, there's no right or wrong way of creating.
Right.
And because I constantly put myself in that mind frame, I'm able to create in a way that helps me stand out. So I'm definitely grateful for having my own creative voice in that aspect.
Excellent. Excellent, man. So this is the last segment, uh, which which I titled "Take It to the Gut." GUT, standing for giving up the tangible.
Mm.
Resources to help creatives who are just starting out, get where you are. Okay, so what should creatives, in particular painters, do to get better? Aspiring painters, you want to
I would say
start young.
I would say definitely surround yourself with people that that you want to surround yourself with people that is doing what you want to do.
Mm,
Oh, and pick their brains. You know, to me, creativity is a collective effort.
mm,
So I know with me, in the beginning, I always play this lone wolf. I'll do it
mm,
by myself. I do, and that does not, I mean, that is not a good strategy. Because
mm,
what you do is you isolate yourself from people that has resources and information. So it's important that you put yourself in the right people. I don't want to say just any artist, or just anybody, but like people that is going in a direction that you want to go, you know.
got you.
Because just because, I mean, yeah, they're an artist and they have information, but you know, every artist is not going to have the information that you particularly might need.
Right.
So just try to surround yourself with the right kind of people that'll help get yourself there. And also, I say, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mm,
Take risks with whatever you're doing, and don't try to play it safe. Because oftentimes you try to play it safe all the time, and it. I found out that when you learn to walk outside the line,
mhm.
you end up in some pretty fascinating places, in your journey, you
Yeah.
know, versus just always playing it safe. Now I don't mean like just throw yourself out there and just complete
Yeah. Right.
danger, but
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's good to take risks. I mean, like
Mhm.
years ago, I quit my job. I ain't had no savings, but I just knew it was an unction. It was like a gut feeling, like, you know, I got to get off this hamster wheel, because if I don't, I'm never gonna get off the hamster wheel.
Mm,
You know, and when I decided to quit my job, everything else just fell in place.
mm,
You know, um, I was able to um, opportunities and doors started to open to me that I never would have had those opportunities if I was working a 9 to 5 job.
gotcha.
Even, I mean, there's ups and downs. Yeah, I mean, most definitely. But as long as you're moving, and you're constantly, putting yourself out there, it's going to work itself out. You know, my philosophy that I always tell myself is keep the brush moving, and it's not from a literal standpoint, but it's just in whatever you do, keep the brush moving. Don't quit.
Mhm.
Don't give up. And I say that all the time to myself. I coach myself a lot. And you no matter how bleak a situation seems, I'm not going to throw a pity party. I'm not going
Mhm.
to just stand there and just wallow in my sorrows, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna keep the brush moving
Mm.
until you know something happens, until the situation turns. You know,
Right. Um, what should they do to best promote their work?
social media. It's so many resources through social media now. That you can um, get yourself involved in. Definitely, if you can, get you a website. But if you don't have the means to get you a website, just utilize social media constantly. And I'm telling myself this because I really haven't been posting like I would normally. But just keep posting
Mm.
your work. Keep putting yourself out there. And eventually, somebody's going to see your work. That's how I was able to go out to France,
Right.
because it was this guy, that um kept following my work, until all of a sudden he offered me a proposition that I couldn't refuse. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take that risk, and there it comes out with taking a risk.
Taking the risk. Yeah. Yeah.
Risk, and I went ahead and did it, and it was the best decision of my life. So you just never know who might be observing you through social media, and then
Mm.
all it takes is this that one call, and it can change your life. So
Just
yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
Just like that. Okay. So, um, right now, right now, Sean, I would like for you to please provide everyone with, all the handles that you have, your social media, contacts that you want to give out, emails, web addresses, whatever. Best ways to get in contact with you, best way to view your work. If you can take that time to provide that which you'd like, please do so.
Okay, well, you can reach out to me through Instagram, TikTok is Sean Mulkey Arts. Facebook, my government name, Sean Eric Mulkey. I have a website, SeanMulkeyArts.com, and my email. If you want to send me an email or whatnot, is mulkey.sean@gmail.
Hmm. Sean, we have been speaking for over an hour and 45 minutes, good brother. And
Yes,
I'm going
sir.
to tell you, whenever you want to come back and ramble on, you go ahead. Okay, no, I'm serious, but no, for real. Like
I'll
this is
definitely take you up on that offer, man, because one thing is, like, I don't do a whole lot of interviews,
mm,
and in the past I would usually try to avoid them, but I just realized that, like, you're only going to get better if you just keep doing these interviews,
yeah,
because another thing about being an artist is that people not only want to see your work, they also want to know the person behind the work.
yeah,
So
very much.
yeah, so, like, with all the rambling that I felt I've been doing, I just got to keep doing it, and after a while I become more comfortable, I become more relaxed, and you know that's the only way I'm gonna get better. So
Well
y'all in the
played.
comments, just go easy on me. I know I was all over the place, and I'm like, what?
No, no, and that's the thing, man. I don't. No one, you know, you, no one does that. No one's coming at anybody, like that, or and thus far, at least,
Yeah,
no
well, I
person
know it's
like
the
that.
internet, but
Yeah, I mean, it's like because this is what this,
yeah.
it's a, it's for the show's for everyone, but
Yeah,
it's designed for creatives. So you're
yeah.
gonna have creatives themselves listening, and you're gonna have those that just love creatives. They may not be creatives themselves, but they
Mhm.
love listening to creatives. They love, especially love hearing their creative journey. So and yours has been spectacular. I'm so glad that everything that has happened for you, or to you, I'm glad that it did, because it's gotten you to this point, and you have been able to share, a small portion of what makes your work as amazing as it is, and that's an understatement. And you are a brilliant creative through and through, and I'm quite sure that all of the all of the your experiences, your passion, I'm sure it'll come out in the next phase of whatever it is that you choose to present to us, and I for one can't wait for it. I'm truly fortunate. Thank you so much, good brother Sean, for taking out the time to be on our L.O.S.T Creative Podcast.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
No problem, good brother. Excuse me. And thanks everybody once again for tuning in. On YouTube. Please definitely continue to like and subscribe. For listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and all the other channels, please continue to download and like and subscribe as well. Please don't forget to go to www.thelostpublishing.com. Lost Lovers of Storytime Volume 1 is available, and you most certainly can purchase your order of that there. So please do so. Excuse me. Black and brown creatives everywhere. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Know that you are a creative, and tell me your story.